Hey guys, it's Sabrina, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my spring TBR. I'm so excited that it's spring. I'm ready for nice weather. I'm ready to read sitting outside. Like it not being too cold to do that. That blows my mind. I'm so pumped. So I like doing these seasonal TBR videos as a way to show what's at the top of my TBR in that moment. So that's kind of how I think of these. These are the books I'm most excited to read right now. And that's pretty much all for the intro. Let's get into it. The absolute first book on my TBR, the book that's at the top of my TBR honestly, is Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This book takes place in the north of England and it follows a family that is living as the ancient Britons, meaning that they're surviving by the tools and knowledge of the Iron Age. That just sounds so cool to me. It sounds so weird, and it has this gorgeous little cover. It's also a very short book, so I feel like I should be able to get through it pretty fast. But there's just something about this book that ever since I read the synopsis, I just have been dying to read it. It just sounds like it's right up my alley, and so I'm really, really excited for this one. Next, we have Grief is for People by Sloane Crosley. This is a memoir about grief. I believe she wrote it after her friend died. Is that right? It's a deeply moving and suspenseful portrait of friendship and a book about loss that is profuse with life. Yeah, and it follows this woman whose friend died by suicide, and it's kind of her memoir about dealing with that and her grief. I talked about this before on my channel, but my grandmother died recently. Well, not too recently now. It was in August. But ever since, I've been searching for a book about grief that will just feel really cathartic to read. And I picked this book up for that reason. Now, my grandmother obviously died of old age. I guess I don't need to say obviously there, because she could have died from something else, but she did die of old age, not suicide. So it's not gonna be the exact same thing, because I think a loss from suicide is a very specific loss. But I'm just hoping that I can relate to the feelings of grief that she talks about, because I really just want something cathartic that helps me process that. So I'm hoping this will be it. And I've heard that really good things about this book. Even the back says, "Is it wrong to say that a memoir about loss and grieving is fun to read?" We'll see how it goes. I don't know if I'm in the mood for a fun book about grief, but we'll see. Next, we have Coup de Grace by Sophia Arjum. This is a short horror novella, and it follows this man who's about to commit suicide, and he's taking the subway there, and then he gets lost in this labyrinth of subways, something like that. It just sounds really cool, and I followed this author for quite some time. I follow her because she makes the most beautiful jewelry in the entire world, and I'm really interested to see what her writing is like. I haven't really heard anyone read this either, so I haven't really heard any reviews, so I'm kind of excited to go into it completely unbiased, not having any thoughts on it whatsoever. After that, we have The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is a high fantasy book, which first of all, I haven't been reading much fantasy, so I'm really excited to read one that's been so hyped because everyone that reads this absolutely loves it. I don't really understand it, to be honest. I know that it's a really hierarchical magic system where you give will to people that are more powerful than you, and because of that, they have more power. Did that make sense? I think it made sense. And it follows a military school and this guy whose family and kingdom was destroyed by the Empire, so he's kind of going up against it. I don't know. I just know that everyone loves it, and I want to read some more fantasy because it's been a while. So this is definitely on high on my list. Then we have another book that's very high on my list, but I also feel like I can't describe. So good job, Sabrina. But that is The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. This book, it's a family story. It kind of is following this family where everything is falling apart. And it follows each member of the family and their own unique issues, and they tie it all back to this bee sting that happened during the wedding or something like that. So that doesn't sound like a very interesting book, but I've heard so many great things about this, and everyone really loves it. And I'm just so convinced that this is gonna be a new favorite book. The only reason I haven't picked it up so far is that it's a very chunky book, and that scares me for some reason. Even though I love big books, I just haven't felt like picking any up in a while. But I'm really convinced I'm gonna love this. I'm so excited to read it, but I'm also intimidated about it because I'm so excited. I'm worried it's not gonna be as good as I'm thinking it's going to be. So I just need to pick it up and see is the thing. I've also included some nonfiction on this book because I'm really trying to read nonfiction as I'm reading fiction, so that I'm reading more of it because I love nonfiction. I just never pick it up. And the first nonfiction on this list is James Baldwin's No Name in the Street. This is his memoir. It talks about like his childhood to his adult, like that's what a memoir does. I don't need to describe what a memoir does. It talks about his life. I'm in love with James Baldwin's writing. I read The Fire Next Time, is that what it's called? And Giovanni's Room last year. Loved both. Became obsessed with him. And I want to keep reading more about him. I need to read it. I need to read everything Baldwin has ever written, and I know I'm gonna love it. I know I'm gonna like be upset when I read it because it's like one less Baldwin book that I'm going to have to look forward to. But it has to be done. It has to be done. I love him so much. Next is another nonfiction, and that is After Black Lives Matter by Cedric G. Johnson. This is a Verso book, so if you don't know, Verso is like a radical leftist publisher. So this talks about the Black Lives Matter movement of the 2020. I was gonna say of the 2020s, but I noticed I was wrong because it was really hyper-focused in 2020. So just ignore everything I say because everything's nonsense. But basically, this book talks about the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020 and kind of what went wrong and why it didn't have like a lasting impact, like kind of the racial inequality protests of the 60s and stuff. And that just sounds really interesting. Like it says, why did a movement as powerful as the one inspired by the murder of George Floyd fall short of securing its most militant demands? After Black Lives Matter argues that the core of the movement itself failed to locate the central racial injustice that underpins the crisis of policing, socioeconomic inequality. I want to read this so bad. I think I'm just gonna love it because I'm really interested in it. I don't know what to say. I just really want to read it. So that's why it's on the list. Next we have Bel Canto, I think, by Anne Patchett. This book follows a hostage situation. Yeah, it says, it is a perfect evening until a band of gun-wielding guerrillas takes the entire party hostage. Party. Why did I say party? I said like potty. That's awful. I meant to say party. But what begins as a panicked, life-threatening scenario slowly evolves into something quite different, a moment of great beauty, as guerrillas and hostages forge unexpected bonds and people from different continents become compatriots, intimate friends, and lovers. I don't know, it sounds so good. I've heard so much about this book and this author. It's been really hyped up for me. And I want to read more by Anne Patchett in particular just because I've heard so much about her. So I'm really hoping this one's going to be like a win for me. Which is a funny thing to say about a book about a hostage situation, but you know what I mean. Next, we have The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. Now, I've had this... Oh my god. It broke off. Okay, whatever. I've had this book for a very long time, like years and years and years, and I've never picked it up. Well, I did try to pick it up once, and it was like kind of boring in the beginning, so I put it right back down. But I recently read Burnham Wood by this author, and I'm obsessed with it. It was a 5-star read. I just loved it so much. It's insane. So I really want to read everything this author has written now. And this book has something to do with, like, astrology, I think. Maybe not. I think I just assumed that because of the cover and the name. But it says that it takes place in 1866, and it follows a man named Walter Moody who has come to stake his claim in New Zealand's gold rush. But on the night of his arrival, he stumbles across a tense gathering of 12 local men who have met in secret to discuss a series of unexplained events. I think it's gonna be good, just because Burnham Wood was good is really what I'm going off of here. I think, like, maybe the first time I picked it up, I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I need to, like, be ready for a serious book, if that makes sense. And I'm really hoping I'm gonna love it. Oh, and it's the winner of the Man Booker Prize. Even better. Next is a very different book from all the books on this list. Like, all these books, except for The Will of the Many, have been, like, literary stuff and nonfiction, and this is a horror novel. This is Chlorine by Jade Song. This book follows like a high school girl who wants to be a mermaid and like slowly turns into a mermaid or something like that. I don't know. I know it's body horror and that it's supposed to be really good. So I feel like that's what I'm saying about every single one of these books. Like, I've heard such good things, but that's what makes you want to pick up books, right? Like, the synopsis and the fact that you hear good things about them. So that's where I'm at for this one. I've really been loving horror recently, and I want to read more of it, so if you have any recommendations, please leave them down below, because I would love to hear them. And this is a book that just appeals to me for some reason. I love mermaid shit. I love horror. I think it's gonna be a great time. The next book on my TBR is Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Horwath. This book I'm so excited about. Like, I can't explain to you how much I want to read this book because it's just like, I can't put it into words. This book follows a 15-year-old Lucy who lives in an Irish village in the 1990s, and she's had this like best guy friend for years and years and years, and everyone kind of assumes that they're gonna grow up and get married, and she's kind of just like acquiesced to that. But then she meets a girl from school, and she starts to have feelings for a girl from school. And it's supposed to be written really beautifully and use a lot of like religious imagery, which I just go crazy for. I love religious imagery. So I'm so excited about this one, and I really want to pick it up soon. Then we have Piglet by Lottie Hazel, or Hazel, I don't know how to say their name. I don't know how to say anyone's name, so that's not news to anyone who's been watching my videos for a while. But this book essentially follows a woman who's about to get married, but then her fiance confesses a horrible betrayal 2 weeks before they're set to be married, and she finds herself suddenly hungry. I know it has a lot to do with food. Obviously, you can tell that just by the cover. I'm obsessed with this cover, and I think that's the real reason why I really wanted to pick this up. I just love paintings on a cover, and the fact that this is like a painting of a hamburger is crazy. It's so good. I love it. I've heard a lot of good things about this one as well, and I just really want to read it. I'm giving up on my descriptions, as you can tell. I'm just like, I want to read it, and that's why it's on the list of books I want to read. Of course. Anyway, we're down to our final two. The second to last is a book I've recently picked up, and that is Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath by Heather Clark. This is Sylvia Plath's, well, one of Sylvia Plath's biographies. And I've heard really good things about this one, because I was reading reviews of some of her biographies, and one of them said that this one's like really good because it doesn't like take her whole life of just leading to her suicide, if that makes sense. Like some of her other biographies are just trying to like figure out the reason she killed herself from the very beginning, and this isn't so doing that. It's more so devoted to like telling the story of her life, not just her suicide. Sylvia Plath is a writer that I love. I'm not a big poetry girl, so I haven't really read her poetry, but I love The Bell Jar despite its many faults. That book means so much to me. And I also really liked reading her unabridged journals. I haven't finished that, but that's something that I want to read like slowly over the course of my life, if that makes sense, which is a little cheesy, but that's how I feel. And I just really want to learn more about her. I really want to read some... I keep doing this because it's such a heavy book. It's like hard to hold up, but I really want to read some more biographies. Really want to read some more nonfiction. So I think this is just a perfect blend. Like, and a lot of my nonfiction on my shelves is really political, so this gives me something a little bit different to read as well. And then the very last book on my spring TBR is a book that has graced many TBRs, and that is Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. Now, this has been on many TBRs because I read Dune and Dune Messiah last year, and then ever since I've been putting this on like so many TBRs. This is the third book in the Dune series, so if you don't know what Dune is about, where have you been? But also, Dune essentially takes place in a futuristic society where, like, we can travel between planets, and it follows House Atreides, which is given dominion over a planet called Arrakis. And Arrakis is really well known because on there you harvest spice, which is important for, like, intergalactic travel, as well as, like, the magic of the world. But soon after they arrive there, they're betrayed, and the son of Paul Atreides and his mother escape, and they go to live with the Fremen, which are like the native peoples of Arrakis. And from there, shit just gets crazy. I've put off reading this for a long time because I've heard that after Messiah, the books get really bad. But I was talking to a coworker at work, and she said Children of Dune is really weird, but also good. So that makes me want to pick it up even more. And I really want to read the whole Dune series, so I don't want to put it off for too long since I read, like, Dune Messiah last year. I don't want to wait too long before, like, continuing on. So there you go. Those are all the books on my spring TBR. Those are the books I'm most excited about right now. Let me know what books are in your spring TBR down below, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye!